David, thank
Yes,
you so much.
it's a
First of all,
pleasure.
I want to say thank you for your time because right now I'm in front of one of the most influential drummers ever. So it's true. You're true. And no, thank you for your time. I would like to share your deep knowledge with all drummers here in Italy.
Okay.
And I would like to start with a question about one of your famous book, Future Sounds. You
Yes.
wrote many books,
Yes.
but Future Sounds is a classic and open up doors for creativity on the drum set.
Yes.
It talks about groove, coordination, and permutation, your concept. So I know that book really well, but let's say I don't know that book. What happens if I work on that book? What happens later when I finish the book? So what's the goal?
Well, let me give you some history about that book, the making of that book. So my first book that I wrote was about this thick, and it was everything I knew about drums, everything I thought that was important. So I had this big thick manuscript, and I took it to different publishers. So there was a really famous man, famous educator, music publisher named Sandy Feldstein, right? And he was in Los Angeles, and I had known about him because I'd seen his name on other books, and he was very well respected. So I called him up, and he was very gracious, very nice to me. And he knew who I was from Tower of Power and all that. And I had not had any sort of published works yet. So he had me come in for a meeting, and he looked at my book, and he took it home, and he's like a former college professor, right? Mm-hmm. Percussion professor.
Yeah.
And so he took it in, he graded it just like a college paper. He said he put it out on his table at home, and he graded it, and he looked at it and all this stuff. And then we met again afterward, and he said he loved it, right? And he said, but you don't have a subject. And I said, no subject, it's drums, right? And so he says, no, you have to have a subject. We can say, pick something out of here that you really want to communicate to people, and then we save the rest for other books. He says, take your manuscript, go home and find a subject and come back in 2 weeks. Okay,
wow.
Che cosa? So I go home and I struggle for this, what it is that he wants me to do, right? And, this subject. And so as I'm home practicing, one day I realized, well, what I like about the drums, basically, is the beats, the grooves, right? The hi-hat, the snare drum, and bass drum. And I thought, that's it. That's gotta be it, right? So I called him up and I said, I got my subject. So I went back, we met again, and I told him, and he shook my hand and he said, it's awesome, let's go to work, right? And so really, he knew what the subject should be even before I did. He wanted me to discover it, right? And so he put me in a position where I would have to search for the answer so that the end result was always my own, mm-hmm. right? And so with Future Sounds, it's kind of not designed to be in an alphabetical order. It's not like an alphabet, right? The alphabet's in there, right? But it was designed that you could, as a reference book, like an encyclopedia, that you could go to and that you could use at any point in your music life, right? And get something out of it, right? That you could use it as a point of contact for your learning, for your creativity, what you want to say as a player, right? So when people come to study with me, the first question I always say is, what do you want to do? That's the first thing I say. What do you want to do? Because sometimes people come to me and I'll say, and the answer sometimes I get is, well, I want you to show me something. So, okay, I'm showing you something right now. What do you want to do? Because really, if you want to build your music, you have to have an idea of what it is that you want to say. With Future Sounds and all my books, I kind of look at them as sort of like an encyclopedia, different things that you can work on to help inspire coordination ideas and take your playing in maybe a place that, you never thought it would go.
Yeah, it's a tool to express yourself.
Exactly. Like I have books at home that I have, to me, are reference books. Stick control, Accents and Rebounds, Gary Chafee's books. But I never, ever use an idea from a book that I study as that idea that I got out of the book. I never do that. I take it and I shape it and I use it my way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like that. So that's the idea of future sounds.
Listen, you wrote that book 30 years ago.
Yes.
Yeah. And in these 30 years, the drumming has grown, has changed. Look at the internet today and we watch many drummers playing chops, a lot of technique. So my question is, if you wrote that book today, would you change something?
No.
For the, no, okay.
No, I would not. I think that it's a tool, as you described.
You can use it forever.
You can use it. It's an open-ended thing. That's why, to me, a book like Stick Control, for instance, right? People look at that and go, it's just, you know, per le mani, you know. But of course it is. That's what, you know, playing is what? Singles, doubles, flams. And then you build from there. It shows you how to put your hands together, and then you, with your creativity, you build something, you know.
What are you practicing now? You practice...
I'm studying hand technique.
Hand technique?
Yeah, with a guy named Bruce Becker in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
David, you teach today, do you teach?
I do.
Yeah.
I do.
Today you can find every kind of book, DVD, internet resources, online courses. Did you change your approach from the past teaching?
Yes. It's much less complicated.
Okay.
And so years ago when I had hundreds of students, you know, I was teaching them pretty complex concepts, right? But now, I'm only interested in helping somebody be who they want to be, whatever that is, right? So when we work together, a lot of my students, people that come to me now, are studying with someone else.
Yeah.
Right? And so we talk about how to access that material, right? But also, it's all about, to me, what do you want to do?
Yeah.
And so we do hand technique, we do drum set stuff, we talk about beats, we talk about things, stylistic things, but I guess my main thing now is that drumming is more than paradiddles. It's beyond that. Mm-hmm. If you really want to play well, you got to have this going. You got to have the right mindset, right? Mm-hmm. And that there's no magic in any of this. It's all work. You put in the work, right?
Yeah.
Because drumming is art. No more, no less. It's art. It's art. It's art, right?
And talking about your learning,
yes.
Especially in the past when you were young, did you learn more with playing with bands as you probably did, or working on books, practicing with your teacher, or playing along to records? What's all of it? All of it.
Yeah.
Okay.
All of it. You know, it's learning is always kind of influenced by your environment, right? Mm-hmm. And learning at the time that I was growing up was on much more local level. Your neighborhood, the guys that you knew, the players that you knew that you could go see. There was the Stick Control book, there was the Buddy Rich book, there was maybe a couple others, but learning was totally coming from the classical tradition. The players that you'd hear on records, you didn't get to see them unless they came to your town, right? And so you had to use your imagination. What are they doing? How is he playing this hi-hat? How is he playing the cymbals? How he's playing time? He's doing these really cool ideas. So you'd have to really use your imagination to sort of get an idea of what this person on the recording was doing. And then if you had the opportunity to see them, that was even better, right? But that didn't happen as often because learning and playing was all done on more of a local sort of a level. So you had to use your imagination. And I think imagination is one of the greatest greatest tools for you assembling how you want to play. It's all about building a concept for yourself. Just imagine it. What is it that you want to do? You have to create something with it. So learning to me is all about with other people, starts with you, and then being in as many bands as you can be in. Play, learn some songs. Like our band leader, for instance, Tower Power band leader, Emilio.
Yeah.
He had a band the first day he learned how to play. His father bought him instruments so they'd keep him out of trouble, him and his brother. And so he bought him instruments, and they had a band. They called themselves a band the very first day that they could play. I mean, how many people do you know like that?
Yeah.
You know? So to me, that's just a really, really great inspirational thing, you know, is that here's somebody who couldn't even play, and he's calling himself a musician already. That's vision.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Who were your heroes when you were young, before all the funk stuff started? And all,
well, I was like, you know, the local guys at school. You know, there was an older kid who I saw play the drum set, so I'd watch him play, and then my friends took me to see James Brown.
Yeah.
Right. So that sort of changed everything for me. You know, so I loved like the jazz tradition. I still do. You know, I was really influenced by big band music. You know, Count Basie and Woody Herman and all that stuff. You know, I loved all. I still do. It's beautiful music and teaches you how to play in an ensemble, right? And then when I saw James Brown, my friends took me to see James Brown. We're in San Jose, California, right? At the San Jose Civic Auditorium. Beautiful facility downtown center. 1965, I think.
65.
Something like that. And it was the same band that was on that James Brown recording called Live at the Apollo. It was the same band, right? And we go in the afternoon. They take me down there, right? So we go down in the afternoon, and the doors open. We go in, and they're rehearsing. They're having a rehearsal, like a sound check, right? So we walk in there, my friends and I, and we go right up to the stage, and we're watching them play. I mean, it was absolutely stunning. And at that moment, I realized, man, it was such a powerful thing. That's how I want to play, right? So I started kind of getting an idea of kind of where it is that I wanted to do, the kind of drummer that I wanted to become, you know? And where I grew up, the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area, there was a lot of music going on, a lot of musical influences, lots of stuff. So you had classical music, you had jazz, you had all the world music, you know, all the Caribbean stuff, you know, Latin music, you know, percussion stuff, you know, bata, you know, everything, you know, Brazilian music, you know, and rock, and then the funk and all that. So all the players, you come out of there with all of this mix of stuff in your head, you know, and so all the players that were coming from there, they all had this influences that were coming from all over the place, you know. Yeah. And these guys, I mean, they just could do everything, you know. But they had all these influences, you know.
So what's your approach about using the internet for the learning side? Online courses, YouTube. What's your approach?
Well, to me, learning is always good, whatever it is, right? So wherever you pick up your information, that's cool. I think all the courses, you know, Drumeo, all the other people that are offering online courses and Skype lessons and all these other things, you still have to practice. You still have to put it into practice. You still have to work at learning how you should use it.
Yeah.
Right? So the end result is still going to be the same. There's just more stuff to look at now, right? But I mean, I think it's great. Wherever you can find something to help you get to you is good.
Yes. And can you name me a few of the new dramas of the new generation you particularly like or inspired you?
Well, there's like a few guys. You know, there's this UK drummer Ash Sohn.
Yeah, one of my favorites.
I just saw him. We just hung out together in London.
Yeah.
And he came to our show at the Royal Albert Hall. You know, great musician. Another Richard Spavin. You know, another fantastic player. Nate Smith.
You wrote Future Sounds. I would like to ask you, what's the future in drumming? What will happen? Technique side. What with all this information, the level is higher and higher. What do you think will happen in the next 10 years, for example?
Well, I mean, I'm not a visionary, so it's hard for me to tell. That's only God knows what's going to happen, in that way. But I think that it just goes back again to what we've been talking about. Ask yourself, what do you want to do? What kind of contribution do you want to make to this art, right?
Yeah.
And then you just get to work on doing it. The thing about music is that it's a long-term, art. It's a lifelong pursuit. It's something that you have to spend a lot of time doing if you want to see really, really great results. That's why we honor and revere older musicians for their depth of knowledge and all that stuff. Why? Because they're seasoned. Their art is developed, right? They have something that you can look at and you can study, and it endures. Mm-hmm. So even today, with musicians, as we look at Tony Williams, we look at Elvin Jones, Joe Jones, all these guys who kind of defined, kind of a part of music, right? We still study those people. The James Brown drummers, we still study them, right? And why? Because what they did is still living. They created something.
There's no a secret, but if I ask you how to improve your groove, you're famous for your classic grooves. What do you suggest to do first of all?
Well, the first thing that I would do personally, which I encourage people to do if they have trouble with that idea about groove and all that other stuff and trying to understand it, is take all the toms and all the cymbals off of your drum set, right? So that you have just the hi-hat, snare drum, and bass drum, right?
Yeah.
And you're going to feel naked, right? Because you're used to hitting all this other stuff. But really, how you make music today in an ensemble is with those elements, right? So that's what my books are all about, is time. The thing that was cool about the James Brown thing that I always liked was they would play these long grooves that kind of were this metronomic, hypnotic sort of thing that kind of cruised along, and it kind of had some life to it, right? And there was nobody played any fills. If you can sit down and enjoy playing just time, even with your ride tone, ding, 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 and you're excited by that, there's your groove right there. And then with the band, time is a communal sort of a thing, right? Mm-hmm. And the really great bands that play together because they all can groove, no matter what the instrument is. They own the time. You and I have a band together. Mm-hmm. We both own the time so that we can play together.
Yeah.
I'm not following you. You're not following me. We're playing together, moving together. That's the groove.
Yeah. And I have a curiosity. You don't play really hard. You
Correct.
don't hit really hard. Is this a choice you made for playing easily the way you play or the style you play? Or you think that hitting too hard is not good for playing that kind of music? Do you know what I mean?
Okay, but think about this too. Is when you speak, do you speak as loud as you can speak all the time?
Mm-hmm.
No. Your voice goes up and down. The environment kind of determines how you speak, the volume that you speak at, the people that you're with. You and I, this is just like what happens in a band right now. You and me, we're talking. We have an exchange of ideas, right? You ask me a question, and then you're listening as I give you the answer, right? So that's just what happens in a band. You listen to each other, you converse, right? And so for me, that's up and down. And the most easy way to do that is we're having a relaxed conversation, right? And so the best music is made, I think, when you relax. So my teachers always taught me about economy of movement, right? So you get the maximum amount of sound out of a small space.
In fact, you have a great groove and a great sound. I was asking myself, what is that? What is the right technique you have in your hands to have that big sound, or is a way to play all that notes?
Starts here. Your sound starts in your head.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you have to have, not only do you have to have like ideas to play, right? But you have to kind of have a concept of the sound you want to put forth. You know, how do you want your drums to sound, right? How do you want to hit your drums? Because that influences the amount of tension that you bring to the instrument, influences the way that it sounds. Even a ride cymbal, right?
Yeah.
So if I grip the stick really tightly, and even though I'm only playing with this kind of force, if I have this kind of tension in here, that cymbal is going to sound choked.
Yeah.
If I loosen my grip, right, all of a sudden the stick comes off of the playing surface a lot faster, right, and allows the playing surface to resonate. That's a skill that you have to develop. It's like talking,
Yeah.
you know.
What happens now with Tower of Power?
We just work all the time, you know. I mean, the tradition of the band is work.
Yeah.
You know? So we do about 200 days a year, and that's all over the world, you know.
Wow.
Playing our music. It's still very, very enjoyable, you know. I mean, you get paid for doing something that's your own. I mean, there's nothing to complain about, really, you know. So right now I'm tired. We just finished a tour yesterday, you know, and so today I'm here, you know, vacanza.
With Franco Rossi, our friend here.
Zio Franco.
I have to say thank you to Franco for this opportunity, because we're guest of his house, his
Yes,
studio
of course.
here, so I have to say that.
No, but Tower of Power, I mean, you know, the band celebrated 50 years. I joined the band when I was 23. I was 23 years old. So that was July 23rd, 1970,
Wow.
right? And because I remember the date because it was a big thing for me,
Yeah.
you know, and it was an important date for me. So recently we did in Australia, we did a cruise with Dave Cause, that saxophone player Dave Cause, right? So he's doing an interview with all the guys in the band for the people that are on the boat, right? And so every guy had a date of when they started. And I never realized that everybody remembered it and thought of it in that way, right? Because
powerful.
Yeah, because everybody that comes in the band, they tend to stay, you know, stay for a long time. So the guys that I work with, they've been there for, you know, 10 years or more. We just did a really great recording session with Jacob Collier in London last week. We did it.
Great.
That's coming out in September. So that was really
With the entire
awesome.
band?
Yeah.
Wow, cool. I have a question about sessions. Let's say you have to record your most important album right now, today, but you can bring with yourself only one snare drum.
Yes.
Which is the snare you bring with you?
Well,
I know the answer, but
the one that I use all the time, you know, my signature Yamaha drum, you know.
Yeah.
To me, that is one of the greatest snare drums I've ever played. I mean, you can tune it all sorts of different ways, head combinations, all kinds of things you can do to make it sound perfect for whatever you're using it for. You know, it's very versatile.
every musical style. Yeah.
Yes.
I know that the snare drum.
Yeah.
Derek, thank you. I think that I
pleasure.
never forget this time spent with you.
I say,
there's a lot to
piacere
learn.
mio.
Piacere mio. Thank you very much. I hope to see you again next time, maybe here in Italy.
Yes.
So thank you really, thank you so much.
Yes, sir.
Good luck.